Okay, welcome everyone to the first Sunnyvale Democratic Club meeting of 2025. Today we have an agenda of three different topics and two different speakers. So first up, we're going to have our club treasurer talk about ranked choice voting, David Newswanger. Not yet, I'll let you know. And then we have Jason Park speaking from, he's a delegate to the Democratic National Committee. And we're also going to be gathering member input on topics, speakers for the coming year. Since it's not an election year, we have opportunity to really delve into a lot of different topics. We can also brainstorm ways to resist the Trump agenda and the Project 2025 locally. So that will be in the middle section, and Jason Park from Democratic National Committee will be towards the end. And then we'll also have announcements. So without further ado, I think we will introduce David Newswanger. Again, our serving on our board and our club treasurer, and he is a volunteer with the Ranked Choice Voting Coalition. And he will also answer questions after a brief presentation and encourage you to be gathering your questions. We'll take questions from the floor through raised hand and also through the chat, however you wish. So David, why don't you take it away?
Okay. I guess questions, if they're urgent, would be fine during the presentation, but I'd rather save them for the end because I was worried about time and getting through everything. I am going to share my screen here. By the way, there's a note in the chat with a website that you can go to later in the talk. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me. As Crystal said, I am a member of the club, but I'm not a politician, and I am a volunteer with the California Ranked Choice Voting Coalition. So I do have an opinion about this subject, but the club has asked me to provide both a pro and a con argument about RCV. So these slides will include more detail than I usually present. And I've got to get my computer going here. Okay, well, in Santa Clara, we have a problem. We actually only let primary voters decide the winner in 75% of the elections. That's because if a candidate gets more than half of the votes in the primary, they win outright. So since the year 2000, 3/4 of all county level races weren't even on the November ballot. The people who turn out to vote in November don't even get a chance to vote in 75% of the races. And that's a problem because a lot fewer people vote in the primary, only about 1/3 of the registered voters in 2024. Worse yet, those primary voters are not very representative of our population. Voters of color, younger voters, lower income voters are vastly underrepresented in primary elections. It's a longstanding problem despite decades of effort by voting rights groups. So in the end, we end up with some politicians being elected or reelected with maybe 20 or 30% of all registered voters having voted for them. Luckily, there's a solution, and it's within reach now. We can eliminate the primary election and have all county races on the November ballot to let the much larger, more representative electorate choose our leaders and still ensure majority winners. It's possible thanks to an election reform that's gaining popularity called ranked choice voting. which I forgot to mention is going to be considered for the county and also for the city of Sunnyvale this coming year. So ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to how we vote. It lets you rank the candidates first, second, third, and so on, instead of being forced to choose just one. If your first choice can't win, your vote automatically transfers to your second choice. So before we go on, let's just get our definitions straight. I'll be using the word plurality and the word majority a lot. Plurality is the group with the most people. So on the left-hand side, I'm just going to check to be sure that my screen is indeed working. Looks good to me. On the left-hand side, you can see a box where the red dots are a plurality. It's the most dots of that color in the box. But on the right-hand side, you have a majority where more than half of the dots are red. So in our current system, the winner only needs the most votes, not more than half the votes. They win with a plurality, and I'm calling it a traditional plurality voting. Ugh. So let's watch this video.
Let's elect our favorite color using ranked choice voting. In a traditional election, you only get to choose one color. In ranked choice voting, you get to rank all the candidates, first, second, third, and so on. Let's see. I really like orange the best, but if it doesn't win, then I want one of the greens to win. These two greens are pretty similar, but I like the light green a little better, so I'll rank it second, and I'll rank the dark green third. I rank purple last. Now let's see how everybody voted. In ranked choice voting, you don't win with just the most votes. You have to get a majority, more than 50%. Purple is ahead, but it only has 7 votes, so we will need to do an instant runoff. First, we eliminate the color in last place. Orange only has 3 votes, so we will go to her voter's second choice. 2 more for purple, 1 more for light green. There is still no candidate with a majority, so now we eliminate light green. The light green voters picked dark green as their second choice, so there are 5 more votes for dark green. Dark green now has a majority with 11 votes, so dark green is the winner the ranked choice voting way.
Okay. Was everybody able to hear that? Okay, good. We're going to play a game now. And if you want to use your phone, you can scan the QR code that you can see or use the link that I put in the chat earlier. We're going to do this game because it's, the best way to understand ranked choice voting is to try it. And we're going to use this game called electing the mayor of Candytown. I guess I'm also going to just comment while you're setting up your screen that the video that we just watched, if you've seen the video from Minnesota Public Radio, this video is very similar, but I can play it without showing an ad on YouTube, which is why you got that Oscar quality video. All right. I'm going to switch screens here now. And if you're using the app, you probably have a screen that looks like this. On the left-hand side are all the candidates for mayor. On my ballot, we have Snickers, Skittles, Sour Patch Kids, Kit Kat, and Milky Way. Your ballot may be different because every person gets the order differently. On the right-hand side, we have 5 columns that are intended for our first, second, third, fourth and fifth choices. So I'm kind of a chocolate guy. My favorite really of these is Milky Way. I'm going to select Milky Way as my first choice. And I like Kit Kat second. So I'm going to rank Kit Kat second. And Snickers is also chocolate. I'm going to put that third. These other 2, Skittles and Sour Patch Kids, I guess neither one of them is a favorite for me, but I'm going to rate Skittles a little bit higher than Sour Patch Kids, and Sour Patch Kids get last place. So we're going to submit the vote, and we're going to take a look at the preliminary votes. And you can see in this graph that of the people who have done this so far, the most people have selected Snickers. A few less Kit Kat, and Sour Patch Kids, Milky Way, and Skittles are down here on the bottom. This line here represents the 50% line. Nobody has reached 50%, so nobody wins yet. What we're going to do is start an instant runoff. So Skittles has the least number of votes. So we're going to eliminate Skittles, and we're going to transfer the votes from Skittles to the other candidates, depending on who those voters selected as their second choice. So let's run this, and you can see some new votes went to each candidate, each of the other candidates. Still, nobody has a majority. So now we're going to eliminate Milky Way, which I think was my first choice. Too bad for me. And not surprisingly, most of those went to the other chocolate candies, but still nobody has a majority. And so we're going to do one more time. We're going to eliminate Sour Patch Kids and reallocate those votes based on their next choice. And now we have a winner. Snickers has more than 50% of the vote. Does that look clear to everybody? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. We're going to go back. So low and unrepresentative turnout are not the only problems with our current election system. Vote splitting is a big problem in our elections and very important to me personally. In this example, we have two candidates from the purple party and one from the yellow party. The purple candidates combined got 60% of the vote, but the yellow candidate wins with fewer votes because the purple candidates split the votes of the purple constituents. And you can think about Ross Perot in 1992, Ralph Nader in 2000. Both were seen as spoiler candidates in those presidential elections because they split off votes from one of the other major candidates, in that case, Bush and Gore. Last year, we worried about Jill Stein and Robert Kennedy, who could potentially have siphoned off enough votes to change the outcome of the presidential election, even though neither of them had a chance of winning themselves. So ranked choice in voting eliminates vote splitting and spoilers. In the example that we started before, candidate A is eliminated and his voters choose candidate B as their second choice. The purple candidate wins with a majority in the second round. So with ranked choice voting, you can honestly rank your candidates in the order of your choice. If your first choice doesn't win, then your vote automatically counts for your next choice instead. This frees you from worrying about how other people will vote and and which candidate is more likely to win and
at the front door.
And changing your vote because of that. So ranked choice voting elects candidates who better represent the will of the people. In our current system, candidates attack their opponents because it works, but it divides us. Ranked choice voting encourages more positive, issue-focused campaigns that are more civil. Candidates need to compete for second choice support from their opponents' supporters. So they appeal to the opponent's supporters, point out similarities in views. They try not to antagonize the opponent's supporters, so there's no trash talk. And instead, they reach out positively to as many voters as possible, including voters whose first choice is one of their opponents. Sometimes you even see ads where both candidates ask you to vote for them 1 and 2. This council member from St. Paul campaigned for second choice votes from her opponent's supporters. I'll just let you read that. And this slide is merely there to give you some references that ranked choice voting actually does promote campaign civility. In addition, ranked choice voting empowers non-traditional candidates. In the current system, a non-traditional candidate is often asked not to run by their party for fear of vote splitting. For example, I'm aware of a Sunnyvale race in which candidates of a certain ethnic group were discouraged from running against another person from that same ethnic group. Also, opponents often encourage another candidate with the intention of splitting the vote. For example, I'm aware of a woman candidate who was recruited by a male candidate in Sunnyvale to run against him and another woman candidate. His goal was to intentionally split the female vote. Also, young people are often told that they should wait their turn. And a long campaign season with primary and general elections is very expensive. So ranked choice voting shortens the campaign season and is less expensive. So it's more manageable by candidates without deep financial support. So ranked choice voting eliminates these barriers. And it's shown to increase the odds of candidates of color and women being elected. As an example, in the Bay Area cities that have adopted ranked choice voting, 61% of city council members are people of color versus 38% before RCV. So in summary, some of the advantages of ranked choice vote are listed here. It eliminates the low turnout primary and increases effective turnout. It eliminates the spoiler effect. It encourages more positive issue-focused campaigns, which may decrease polarization. And it lowers the barrier of entry for non-traditional candidates, such as women, people of color, young people, and people without deep financial resources. But there are some people who have concerns about ranked choice voting. Opponents of ranked choice voting argue that it makes voting more complex and that the complexity is a barrier to participation that results in confusion and ballot errors. So pretty much everyone is familiar with how to rank things. We rank baseball teams and food choices. So we're not going to go into this. This really is not a source of confusion. But what about the ballot? Is the ballot itself confusing? This ballot has 5 columns of bubbles to fill in for ranking 5 choices. Most people who took computerized IQ or STAR tests in school are familiar with bubbles on this sort of page, but some people don't know how to use a table. Excuse me, and this is where education comes in. It turns out education is really important in the success of implementing ranked choice voting. I'm just going to note here that if you vote in person on a computer, it results in fewer errors than mail-in ballots because the computer can prompt a voter if a mistake was made. This is true of ranked choice and also traditional plurality voting, of course. But let's look more at the ballot errors. So one way to measure confusion is to look at the number of mistakes people make on their ballots. And these studies listed here show that the number of voting errors is comparable whether people are using traditional or ranked choice ballots. The first one actually found that traditional ballots produced more voided votes than reform ballots, meaning ranked choice ballots. The second study found that ranked choice voting did not raise the probability of a voter casting an uncountable vote, even though it increased the probability of at least one mistake. So how could that be? On a ranked choice ballot, there are more columns than there are on a plurality ballot, and so there's more chances for error. And indeed, more errors are made on ranked choice ballots, but they're spread out over the multiple choices. So errors in later rounds generally do not invalidate your earlier choices. So you still have more say in a ranked choice voting election, even if you make a mistake. For example, if you vote for two candidates on a traditional ballot or on a ranked choice ballot, your vote doesn't count. So they're equal in that regard. On ranked choice ballots, if you rank two candidates as your second choice, then that second choice does not count. But your first choice did count. And that gives you at least as much say as you would have had in a plurality election, and more if your first choice continues on into the second round. If you rank two candidates as your third choice, then you had a say in at least the first two rounds, and possibly more if your choices continue on through the third round and beyond. So in each case, you had the same or more influence on the results in a ranked choice ballot than you would have had on a traditional ballot. So given these possibilities, it's not hard to understand why some studies show that fewer ballots are invalidated in ranked choice elections, even though there may be more mistakes made on them. Voters from lower socioeconomic groups and some ethnic groups are more likely to make errors on their ballots. But this is true no matter if they're using traditional plurality ballots or ranked choice ballots. It doesn't make any difference which they use. In fact, the third study on this list actually found that ranked choice ballots were associated with smaller discrepancy and error proneness when looked at by race and ethnicity. Voters from all demographic backgrounds use ranked choice voting effectively. There's no difference in self-reported understanding between race and ethnicities. So ultimately, the best measure, I think, of whether ranked choice voting helps or hurts minority groups is to look at outcomes. Women and people of color tend to win more often in ranked choice elections. They often benefit from round-to-round counting because they build support from second and third choice third choices of other candidate supporters. I'm getting myself tongue-tied, sorry. So is ranked choice voting confusing? The vast majority of users find ranked choice voting to be easy, something like 80 to 90% in the exit polls. Now, opponents of ranked choice voting point out that exit polls may not be the best measure of confusion because voters are less likely to admit that they're confused right after they voted. And that's why we discussed ballot errors earlier, which is the other way that we use to measure confusion. Still, ranked choice voting is overwhelmingly described as easy by the people who use it. Another potential source of confusion is understanding how the ballots are counted. This is important because understanding that the counting is fair is critical to faith in the system. Here we have another award-winning.
Let's label the choices on these ballots so we can see how the votes are counted. My vote is the middle one in the orange row. In the second round, orange was eliminated, so my orange choice was transferred to my second choice of light green. The other two orange votes from other people went to purple. Now you can see that some votes showing are first choices, while a few are second choices. When the light green candidate is eliminated, then my second choice of light green is transferred to the dark green candidate, who was my third choice. The other light green voters all chose dark green as their second choice, so dark green got all of those votes. You can see that dark green now has some votes from the first, second, and third choices. But every voter only has one vote counted in each round. This is just like a runoff election. In this election, the voters who favored green initially split the vote between the light green and the dark green candidates. but the instant runoff in the ranked choice election assured that there was no vote splitting and that the result reflects the will of the majority.
So in this election, the purple candidate was winning all the way until the last round when the dark green candidate came from behind and won. Green color supporters point out that more people supported some shade of green, so this represents the will of the voters. The elimination of vote splitting is a feature of ranked choice voting. But purple supporters are skeptical of ranked choice voting because their candidate lost, even though they had the most votes in the first round. Come from behind wins like this happen in about 10% of ranked choice elections. And this is another area where education is key. And I'm going to comment here that opponents of ranked choice voting often misrepresent this come from behind scenario. For example, a recent flyer states that in the 2010 mayor election, the candidate with the most votes lost the election. What actually happened was that the candidate with the most votes in the first round lost to a candidate who came from behind because she had the support of more voters in the end. So it's super important for the registrar of voters to publish a summary report on election night so that people aren't suspicious about nefarious vote tabulation. It's also important for them to cast permanent records later so that organizations and individuals can verify the results. But on the election night, it's good to show as it's happening, the tabulation is incomplete, just as it is now with traditional voting, but it will go a long way to dispelling questions of ethics. So this slide is just an enlargement of the last table. This is one way of displaying the results. In round 4, you can see that candidate D got 13.7% of the votes. That was the fewest votes, and so candidate D was eliminated in round 5. In that round, D's votes were distributed to the other candidates according to the voter's choice. Another way of displaying the results is in graphical form. I'm not going to go through this other than just to point out that in the end, in this particular election, the teal candidate won with a combination of first choice votes and also some second and third choice votes from the pink and purple candidates. It doesn't really matter which way the registrar of voters chooses to display it, but it does need to be displayed to the voters in a timely fashion so they are confident in the system. One of the questions that people ask is, does ranked choice voting guarantee that the winner has a majority? In plurality elections, the winner often does not have a majority in a race that has more than 2 candidates. In ranked choice elections, the winner always has a majority of the votes cast in the last round. It's possible, but not usual, for the winner not to have a majority of the entire voter pool. So this is the same table that we looked at previously. In the first column, there were nearly 27,000 votes counted. Note that the number of inactive ballots increases with each round. That's because some people did not rank all the candidates. So if their first choices were eliminated and they did not indicate who they wanted next, then there was no way to count their ballot in the next round. For many people, this is a choice, not a mistake. For example, they might think, I want Bernie. If he doesn't win, then I don't care who else is elected, so I'm not going to rank anybody else. Alternatively, this could be because the voter made a mistake on the ballot. Perhaps the voter ranked 2 candidates both as third choices. We can't know what he really wants, so that ballot is not counted after the mistake is made. By the time we get to the last round, the total number of ballots counted is less than in the first round. So in the end, sometimes a candidate wins with a majority of votes in the last round, but it's not a majority of votes cast in the first round. This is not rare, but it's not usual. Compare this to a traditional plurality election where it's common for the winner to have fewer than a majority of votes. In a traditional plurality election, a voter who voted for third place candidate does not have a chance to affect the outcome in the selection between the two highest vote getters. But in a ranked choice election, the voter has a chance to participate if she cares about who wins. Also, I'm just going to point out that the number of people who don't participate in a primary or in a runoff in a traditional election sequence is about double the number of people whose ballots are inactive in the last round of a ranked choice voting election. So more people, in the end, more people have participated in the final tally in the ranked choice voting election. So in summary, to those last couple of slides, does ranked choice voting guarantee the winner has a majority of all voters? No. The winner always has the majority in the last round, but sometimes that's less than half of all the voters. Compared to traditional voting, ranked choice voting is more likely to have a majority winner. Does your vote count if you don't rank all the candidates? Yes. Even if you only rank one candidate, your vote counts exactly the same as in a plurality election. Do you get more votes if you rank more candidates? No. Voters do not get multiple votes. They only get a single vote that transfers during the instant runoff to their second and third choices if needed. Is ranked choice voting constitutional? Yes. These cases upheld ranked choice voting against federal constitutional claims. A ranked choice voting election often has more candidates than a traditional general election. And some people say they don't have time to learn about all the candidates. It's easy to dismiss that as, these are lazy voters, but this is actually a real issue. Some people are stretched to the max, and they really don't have time or energy to research all the candidates. In our current plurality system, many voters just choose not to vote in the primary, and that's the problem we're trying to solve. In a ranked choice system, you can still have some say, even if you only rank one or a few candidates. It's the choice of the voter. Ranked choice voting does cost money. There's an expense for software, printing of longer ballots, educating the electorate. It can save money if we can eliminate the primary election, but in Santa Clara County, we can't eliminate the primary because we still have to run state primaries. So in this county, the registrar of voters, this is now a year old, but the registrar of voters budgeted 1.7 million, per election for ranked choice voting with a one-time startup cost of about 600,000. Most of that cost is for labor or for poll worker training, also additional ballot tallying and additional ballot voter information guide printing and things. This represents about 0.015% of the county's budget, and it works out to about $1.66 per voter. So, what about satisfaction with ranked choice voting? About 2/3 of voters prefer ranked choice voting in exit polls. These are some polls that have been done in the last, 5 years or so. And you can see that it runs 60, 70%-ish people who prefer ranked choice voting. And the people who prefer plurality voting is low double digits, so 15 to 30% mostly, something like that. In a political poll, this is a pretty strong support for ranked choice voting. So who has an incentive not to like ranked choice voting? Well, candidates and groups who want to win without a majority. And this is not an uncommon scenario. We can talk about that more in the question session if you want. Another group is incumbents who have been successful in the current system. They don't want to change because they've been successful. Political parties tend not to like ranked choice voting because it reduces their influence, although the Democratic Party has supported it. So ranked choice voting is the fastest growing nonpartisan reform in the United States. About 13 million had used it before the last election, more now. It's used in a couple of states, Maine and Alaska, 7 cities in California, 40, I think more than that now, cities in other states, and numerous countries. Australia and Ireland, for example, have been using ranked choice voting for more than 100 years. And sort of more to the point, voters in Santa Clara County want it. A poll that was conducted now about a year ago shows that voters in Santa Clara County supported ranked choice voting. About 64% of the voters wanted it. In Sunnyvale, it's even more, about 71%. There's lots of people who support it, including the individuals and groups on this slide. You probably know some of them. Let's just briefly talk about what's going on locally. In Santa Clara County in 1998, the voters passed a charter amendment that would allow ranked choice voting, but we didn't have voting equipment that could handle it. It took till 2021 when the Citizens Advisory Commission recommended that we implement ranked choice voting. Last year, the Finance and Government Operations Committee requested a detailed report from the county staff. That is expected to be delivered in April of this year. The board, we hope that it will be passed on to the board and the supervisors will vote on implementation sometime later in 2025. The probable first election wouldn't be for several years after that. And the reason that we're talking to you now is because we hope that you'll contact your supervisor and other representatives to support ranked choice voting. In Sunnyvale, in 2007, the city council supported ranked choice voting, supported implementing ranked choice voting when it was feasible for the county, but of course they didn't have the voting machines. This year, a charter review committee has been formed. It'll discuss a number of things, but one of them is alternative voting systems. Actually, there are 4 members from this club on that committee. Later in this year or in 2026, the city council will consider the recommendations of the committee with a potential for a ballot measure to adopt ranked choice voting in 2026. And again, a potential first election, probably not till 2028. Okay. Are there questions? I see there's some notes in the chat.
I also see Leah Millman has her hand raised. Why don't we start with Leah?
Okay.
So I wanted to ask, in our very gerrymandered country, how would ranked choice voting overcome some of the issues that are involved with, like, say, gerrymandered districts and so forth?
That is an excellent question. I'm getting some feedback, sorry. I'm going to say mostly no, a little yes. What you're really asking about is proportional ranked choice voting. Proportional, I think there's somebody with their microphone on that is distracting me anyway. They could turn it off, that'd be helpful. Proportional ranked choice voting is a different system. I'm not going to really discuss it, but it basically eliminates gerrymandering because voting is combined So maybe 5 districts are combined into one with this massive district, and you have a ranked choice election for multiple candidates from that. It basically eliminates gerrymandering, but um, but ranked choice voting, the way we're going to implement it potentially in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara County, is not going to do that. So Crystal, I'm going to rely on you to call the people. And Crystal, you're muted.
Right, sounds good. I don't see any more hands raised live, but we do have a lot of things in the chat. Let's go to the first one from Mike Kasperzak. Is ranked choice voting an authorized alternative to district voting in a Voting Rights Act case? I've heard that it is, but does not meet the requirements for the safe harbor protection.
Yeah, I'm going to say that I'm not an expert in that. I think the answer is yes, that it is an alternative. I'm not sure that it's been tested in a legal suit for that. And I guess I think what you're talking about maybe is proportional ranked choice, but I'm not sure that I understand the question completely.
No, I was just wondering if in a Voting Rights Act case, if it's an alternative, that or cumulative voting is another voting process which may satisfy the Voting Rights Act requirements. So.
Again, I'm going to say I'm not an expert and I'm hesitant. I think the answer is yes, it would be fine. Um, um, but I'm not willing to stick my neck out.
No worries. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mike, are you suggesting that could be an alternative to districts, going to districts?
That's my understanding, Mike, is that it is. But that if you decide to go that route, you don't get the $30,000 limit under the safe harbor clause.
Yeah, I think to do that, you'd have to use proportional ranked choice voting, not this type of ranked choice voting that we've talked about today.
Okay.
And I think, personally, I think that's the way to go. There's a lot of resistance from candidates, and we're not planning to broach that now.
Yeah.
But certainly on a statewide level, that would be a great way to go.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, we have a question from Carrie Levin in the chat. Please talk about the Oakland RCV, where many opponents who wrongly claim errors were due to RCV when it was really admin errors.
Okay. That was the school board election, if I recall. I do have a slide about that, but I think we'll just talk about it. Basically, the registrar of voters set the machine incorrectly. You can set the voting machine so that if a voter fails to mark the first choice, somebody unshared me, that's fine. If a voter fails to mark a first choice, then that person's second choice moves up to first, and it's counted. And that was the way it was supposed to work in that election. However, the registrar of voters flipped the switch the wrong way, and instead of moving the rankings up, he just invalidated the ballot. The race was close enough that the few votes that fit into that category actually changed the outcome of the race. It wasn't discovered until later, actually by Fair Vote folks, when they checked the cast vote record. So did that explain it well enough? It was a mistake made by the registrar of voters. It really had nothing to do with ranked choice voting. And then, interestingly enough, in New Jersey, there was a regular plurality election the same day where the registrar of voters in New Jersey made a similar mistake on a plurality election and had the wrong outcome. The same mistake, but it was on a plurality ballot instead of a ranked choice ballot.
Yes, that does answer my question, and I thank you for pointing that out, because some of the opponents tend to use that very example of what happened to Oakland is why ranked choice voting failed, when it's really not an accurate claim. But that
Right, exactly. In Oakland, they also complain about the come from behind victory, which we talked about briefly. Their last mayor election, the winner came from behind, and the people who supported the candidate with the most first choice votes were very unhappy. But that's ranked choice voting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. There's a question from Leah Melman. The Republic of Ireland has used RCV for its elections for several years. I understand it has resulted in more middle or moderate representation all around, rather than one party or the other dominating. But since they have more than two parties, I'm wondering how it would perhaps work at the national level in a two-party system like the US pretty much has.
Well, the first thing is, yeah, Ireland's been using it for more than 100 years, and they like it. In fact, we visited family there last year. They were stunned that we weren't using ranked choice voting here, which I thought was entertaining. I'm hesitant to talk about polarization in Ireland because they've had a pretty polarized past. But it's certainly true in Australia that the politics are less polarized than they are here. The other question was about using it in our system in this country. We have two major parties, but we actually have a whole bunch of parties. There's the Green and the Libertarian and others. In a ranked choice voting system, if we were to use it nationally, you wouldn't have a primary. Probably you could, I mean, places like Alaska, they have a top four in a primary and whatnot. But at any rate, theoretically, you wouldn't have a primary. All the candidates would be on the ballot at the same time. You could vote for the Libertarian, and if the Libertarian didn't win, your vote could transfer to the Republican or, whatever. Did that answer the question? Okay.
Okay. Also, Max Kane put in a Wikipedia link for single transferable vote, kind of in response to that same question. So that
Okay,
may be
thank
a
you.
useful link in the chat. And then Tom Leung says, for what it's worth, I could see an argument that a more moderate candidate within the gerrymandered district's dominant party would do better in an RCV election than in a plurality election.
Yeah, well, that's true. We didn't talk about polarization. It is true that ranked choice voting favors more moderate candidates. And that's because, let's say you have an election with, a left candidate, a very left candidate, a medium left candidate, a middle candidate, a medium right, and a far right candidate. And they all split the vote. Nobody gets a majority. The candidate on the far right and the candidate in the far left both have to appeal to voters that voted for people in the center to try to get second choice votes if they're going to win the election. So that brings them towards the center. Or it's probably more likely that the candidates that already started towards the center are more likely to win in that situation. So yeah, the candidates that are really on the extremes of their parties tend not to do as well in ranked choice elections.
Okay, and then these are more comments, but you could comment on the comments. Max responded to that as you'd also have bigger districts to walk. And then Tom said it might also be possible to do RCV within districts versus proportional RCV.
Yes, yes to both. Proportional, that is the argument against proportional ranked choice voting in Sunnyvale. The candidates are very concerned about having to campaign to the entire city rather than just to their district, which is a fraction of the total population. In truth, the people who know how to run campaigns can segment the population, and they actually target certain groups. Candidates target certain groups in a proportional ranked choice election. Still, it is a concern. And then, yes, we could use ranked choice within our districts for sure.
All right, and then there's one last comment. I believe this is supporting ranked choice voting. It says, remove the stone of the two-party system, attach the stone of coalition government, which is still preferable in my opinion.
Well, this is not a parliamentary system, but it does tend to, bring, I'm not sure if coalitions is the right word, but it brings people towards the middle. Sort of a consensus building person is more likely to be successful.
Okay, well, that is all the questions that are in the chat, or any further questions with hands raised? Don't see any.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and I encourage, I guess I'm not sharing anymore, but I encourage you to contact your supervisor. In our case, mostly it's Otto Lee. He's already a supporter of ranked choice voting. But mentioning it to him or to your city council member would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for breaking it down. I love the candy and the colors, and great explanation. I really feel like I understand it a lot better.
Good. And Mike, I hope it wasn't too long and boring. I know you were worried about that.
We've got lots of thank yous in the chat. So.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave. And our next guest, Jason Park, is not scheduled to come on for another 20 or 25 minutes or so. So I'd like to split us out into a discussion about kind of our next topics for the year, and would like to brainstorm and get ideas. We did kind of have an idea, Mike, to do breakout rooms, but I'm wondering if maybe it's, yeah, we've got a whiteboard. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like we could all participate in this, right?
Yeah, I think so. And please do, everyone, participate if you've got some ideas. We're looking for speaker ideas and topic ideas and ways that we can locally resist the Trump agenda and Project 2025. So this is an open discussion. You can use your raise hand or put things in the chat, and we will record everything on the whiteboard, and the board will also use this information to help formulate our next general meetings and invite engaging speakers and topics. So who wants to be first? Tim, I know you've got some ideas.
So I'll be on the Sunnyvale Charter Committee coming up this year, so I'm kind of getting focused on that because it's going to be a ton of work. So I hope other people will read our city charter and maybe funnel me some ideas on how that could be improved and how best to get voters educated so they don't just knee-jerk say no to something that's a great idea coming up on our ballot. So
yeah. All right. Let's see. Mike, are you taking notes on the whiteboard?
I'm not. Bruce, you created it, right?
All right, Bruce, could you take the notes?
Yes, if it'll let me. Hang on.
Yeah.
where is this whiteboard? Am I supposed to see something here?
Here it comes.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Okay.
So Tim, certainly hearing, getting an update from the Charter Commission or, of some kind during the year, I'm sure would be of great interest. What are they looking at and so on.
Yeah, I would think the city charter would have an explicit statement of how citizens within the city are to be treated and that kind of thing, or something to that effect. So making sure that we stay true to Sunnyvale's values.
Well, the values are captured in the code of ethics that everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And the charter is about city operations.
City
I'm
operations.
getting feedback also. I think David commented that when I start speaking, sometimes I'm getting a little bit of.
It seems to be whenever I speak. So maybe I'll just sit here and not speak. For some reason, my mic, people don't like my mic. I don't know. I'll check my settings.
It's best to unmute when you have something to say. Otherwise, the computer can get confused.
Yeah, and it depends. If your mic is built into your computer, it's better at making sure it doesn't retransmit stuff. But if you have a mic that's separate from your computer, sometimes it gets a little confused.
And I believe people can engage with the whiteboard as well and type in ideas. And
Particularly good way to do it is there's about 6 items down is a sticky note thing. If you click on that, you can click on a color you like, and then just drag a sticky note, and then you can type into it.
Does this work any better for my mic? Not having echoes?
Yeah, that's working. Well, I'm not getting something back. It's usually when I first started talking, I was getting echo back, but not now.
Yeah, I think it was just a mic setting on the selection for some reason. It was even though I'd selected the webcam mic, it was having problems with the settings. So I reselected it, and now it seems happy.
Marie, thank you for entering in the chat about Sunnyvale Community Services is bracing for the worst. We attended the county's last-minute meeting with NGOs and government officials. The county is dedicating $5 million for additional efforts focused on legal resources and communications. We're estimating up to 200 executive orders in the first few days of the administration.
Yeah, my feeling is that Trump is going to try to economically starve California from implementing, from going its own way. But then again, changes to what we give to the feds would be up to the state government. Because I think that they'll claw back increases in Medicare funding and that kind of thing would be one of the things. So maybe advocating for that would be healthcare. I think is a critical thing, and then of course dealing with the unhoused is the other critical thing. And then infrastructure, since a lot of the things that we like is to change within the country for climate reasons are based on the infrastructure bill, or the green, what was it, the green something green act that Biden passed, because I could see him gutting that.
Inflation Reduction and the infrastructure. Okay, and I see Bruce, I'd like to see us explore our adaptation to climate change that is already happening. For example, how do we make sure all residents are protected from extreme heat events? And then also Tim in the chat, how do we get more younger people involved with the Sunnyvale Democratic Club and more people in general? Yes, the board has been wrestling with that as well. All right, others, don't be shy. I'm going to start calling on people.
There's so many young people online. I almost feel like we need to make like a democratic participant video game of some kind and launch it, because that seems like the only way you get eyeballs.
Yeah.
That's way too much work.
I understand that. It's my pie in the sky kind of thing, because it's like there's no, you can get them when they're in school, but once they're out of school, most of them are in the workforce with the remote work situation, stuff like that. There's no like one gathering place where you can get people under 30. You know, it's not like they're going out clubbing and stuff like that.
But some of them are going to cyber cafes. You have an event at a cyber cafe.
We have cyber cafes in Sunnyvale.
When on Mary and Fremont.
Oh, maybe we need to educate ourselves about cyber cafes then.
And there's a boba tea places also that a lot of young people are going to.
Oh, that, yes.
Now remember, the point of this conversation is topics that we can bring in front of the club.
Yeah, I have a comment and I can't find raise your hand on my screen. So when it's available, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Julia.
I read an interesting thing on Facebook. What would happen if Stevens Creek Dam failed? And it was very interesting. They admitted that they weren't an expert, but they got this data from something, a document that the county had published regarding the threat, excuse me. So it would come all the way down through Cupertino. It would come into where I live by Homestead High School and around there. And they predict that the level of water would be 3 feet. I found that kind of interesting because nobody discusses flooding in the flatlands, so to speak.
I didn't even know Stevens Creek had a dam, to be honest. So, you know, now I want to take a bike ride down there. Maybe we can organize something like that, Tim.
I wonder if we could build on Julia's idea. That's a specific instance of a risk to citizens or to residents. The council in the consent calendar last week approved I don't know what exactly it was called. It was an emergency risk plan without much public discussion. It would be really interesting to maybe get someone to come and explain to us how exactly did we assess risks and how are there any opportunities for public input on that?
On that note, maybe we should also look at wildfire emergency response in terms of helping people figure out what they need to do, because Los Angeles is an excellent example. We were lucky we got rain this season.
Yeah. Well, Bruce, it also relates to your climate change issue. They both kind of go together.
Yeah, and what I was thinking was, could we get an overview of what are the main risks? If you dug deep into the appendix to the item in the consent calendar, you could actually find maps of that, but no real public discussion of that.
Okay, on that same theme, actually, the Sunnyvale Neighborhood Association, a group of association, whatever, they're making one of their talks public on February 27th about disaster preparedness with presentation. They'd like to get that out to as many people as possible. They're going to make an open public forum, and having the Sunnyvale Democratic Club help promote that, maybe, I don't know, have a presence there might be a worthwhile thing.
Maybe we could help host parties, preparedness parties in the various neighborhood associations and mobile home parks.
Watch parties?
Well, yeah, of a watch party of a sort, you have a few nominal noshes and stuff like that, but mostly like, giving people an excuse. If you provide food, people will come. If anything, in terms of teaching medical residents, anything has served me. But so if we have like a disaster preparedness party or something like that, or something, that might get more people to actually physically show up rather than just coming online and watching a Zoom thing,
Actually, this is going to be in person. It'd be the Senior Center Ballroom.
Right, but the Senior Center is like Southern Sunnyvale. What are we doing for the northern parts and the northern neighborhood associations? What are we doing for Lakewood? What are we doing for, Plaza del Rey residents? I mean, a lot of those people don't get out as much because they're an older population or something like that. What about Tasman Crossing? What about liaising with the churches and the Buddhist temples and the Muslim associations and stuff like that?
Okay, I want to read a few more of the items in the chat. We'll certainly save the chat and add it to the whiteboard. But we have...
Bumper says, "You can't save me in a disaster."
We have Justine Wang. I agree with Leah. I'm worried about how the Republicans will try to sabotage California as payback. And then
I mean, think about the Los Angeles wildfires. I mean, he could really jerk back on right now. We've got FEMA funding and stuff like that, but he could make it conditional on certain behaviors.
Yeah. And then Sue says, I think we should ask the question: is California and Canada ready to become a new country? Sue, are you going to be the speaker?
We'll be British California.
Two quick thoughts. One is, if you've said something and I wasn't quick enough to catch it in a Post-it, please feel free to enter a Post-it yourself. Tim, you said several things and I don't think I caught all of them or even close. The other is, let's focus in. What are topics that we as a club can focus on, either for meetings, or sounds like we're now suggesting some outside of meeting activities. That's okay too, but let's focus on things the club can do.
So Justine Wang says, as a younger person, I also wonder how to combat the wave of anti-American cynicism that's so popular on social media amongst Americans and non-Americans.
I don't know how to raise my hand, so hi, this is Justine. I think one of the most frustrating things is that, we know that the media is actively against us. So all young people and just Americans in general, I think, here are all the things that are going wrong. And there's this reflexive assumption that, people in positions of authority or expertise are, out to get you somehow. I do think one of the great things the DNC did this time around, during, what was it? Not the rally, the super delegate votes for Harris, was inviting Democrats who were active about the Democratic Party on social media, because I don't really see another way other than using social media, because that's where all young people are these days, it seems, to talk about what the Democratic Party is doing all the time to make our communities work. I mean, I really appreciate all we're talking about today about what we can do on the local level to support our community members and to let people know all the different organizations and departments within even just our local community that are working all the time under heavy constraints to try to make things better for people. I I don't know how it is something I think we need to do just to be that voice reminding people of all the things all the ways that we are coming together. But I do also recognize that it's definitely not going to happen overnight.
Thank you, Justine. That's a really good commentary there. And yes, young people are on social media. We have to play that game. I was also wondering how, if it's possible, or if we could have a speaker even talk about the misinformation and disinformation on social media in ways that it can be addressed. Martha, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm kind of paralyzed with fear right now about it. But one of the things that I did as soon as Trump was reelected was I re-upped my membership to the ACLU because last time when he was first elected, my son's mother-in-law was got stuck in the travel ban. She was coming from Iran. And luckily, the ACLU was at the airport. She was actually in the air when this ban came out, and they were starting to deport people as they landed at SFO. And the ACLU was there in full force. We all went up there to, see what we could do. And it's because of the ACLU that she was able to get in. And so at that point, I joined the ACLU. I don't know if you want to have somebody speak from the ACLU to our club or what, but they can make a lot of trouble for Trump and delay a lot of things, which is his forte, delaying. So that's just one idea I had. And then the other thing is maybe start to, and somebody said this earlier, and I agree that we need to get more young leaders involved, and because we've got, a big fight coming. This is going to take years. So we really need to recruit new leadership, young leadership. That's it.
Thank you. And that echoes something that Tom Leung says in the chat. He had to drop off, but he said, I think many Democrats like myself are looking to learn more about up and coming Democratic leaders who can give us hope for 2026 and 2028. So any events featuring high potential future Democratic leaders would be super interesting. Yes. And then Sue, going back to social media, Sue Cerrone says, I would like to have a meeting that would include a social media update. Who owns that? What are the rules, if any, etc.?
Can someone tell me how to raise my hand?
You go to the reactions heart, and that's where the hand raising option is.
Gail, would you like to say something? Go ahead, Gail.
Hi, this is Gail. Okay, a couple things. One, I think having an ACLU speaker would be great. I'm really interested on how we fund our public buildings because, this is because of SoCal, because they lost so many schools and public buildings like libraries. So I'd like just a small discussion on how are those buildings insured. will those cities have to have bond issues? You know, that kind of stuff on how we insure our buildings, because that's important to me. And that's it for the moment. Thanks. Now I know how to raise my hand.
Thank you for that comment. I think we've captured this generally, but I wanted to go ahead and read Marie Bernard's comment. I suggest we talk to public safety. Public safety has told Sunnyvale Community Services that ICE has to inform public safety if they are doing a raid in Sunnyvale. There may be little warning, but hopefully that there will be some notice. We have a protocol that we are dusting off from 4 years ago. ICE could stand across the street and pick off cars in line for our food program. Wow. Okay. Yes. So inviting public safety and having that as a topic could be very informative. And then she also says, I also suggest we contact Ro Khanna's office and Patrick Aaron's office to get direct access to their staff's plans for any threats to the people or environment in Sunnyvale. Yes, absolutely. All right, and then Marie continues. Marie, you can say this in person too. If you'd like to, I'll let you speak up.
Okay, Marie Bernard here, and for those of you who don't know, I'm at Sunnyvale Community Services. So I did attend, and I'm looking for the notes that came from the county. The county hastily put together a meeting that was invitation only to NGOs and other governments. I didn't see anybody from Sunnyvale, but I saw some of our counterparts. And the county, as I said before, has put together a $5 million plan, which is only a drop in the bucket. But they claim that they're unique in the whole state of having an action plan to respond and be proactive against whatever the threats might be come tomorrow, Monday. And they do have there are links to the different areas. They have one focused on the environment, on social services, on fiscal impact that might be happening, and they are writing it as they are meeting. So there should be connections to the county because they have a lot more ways of pulling together resources than our city will, but our city needs to be plugged in. And so our civic leaders, our public officials need to link into that and take advantage of the larger infrastructure that the county has. We also need to know what the county is doing and also make sure that they're paying attention to North County, West County, rather than being San Jose centric, which is where half of the population lives. And we have to maybe fight for resources to make sure that we are getting whatever the issue might be. And as you know, it could hit us in the air, in the water, and cuts to budgets. Those of us, including the city, who have federal grants, those could be frozen or sequestered. And so even though it's in the budget, it could go away. These are, for me, brutal times ahead. And I'd love our city to plug into whatever the county's doing. And I will get as many names and links as I can. The meeting was only Wednesday, and I haven't seen all of the notes yet from that, but they did put together a whole series of links that they said they were going to share.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, it would be really helpful to get names of potential speakers. We've got several in agreement for ACLU speaker. Tim says, how do we increase moderates and decrease extremism in the US? And I think Dave would say ranked choice voting, one way. But yes, I'm sure we could explore that topic in depth. Gail says, would like to talk about insurance for public buildings. With the loss of schools and libraries in Southern California, how are the buildings insured? Not only public buildings, but I'm speaking just for myself now, even, homes and multifamily multifamily homes are subject to insurance companies exiting the state. And with the Southern California fires, that could get even worse. So how to keep all of our insurance in place. All right, there's a lot of commentary regarding how to get more younger people involved with the Democratic Club. There's that is a very, very hot topic with a lot of people commenting. I'll let you guys read that. Make sure that we have that fully captured in the whiteboard. And then Peggy Brewster says, SCS hosted a meeting for protections and services for immigrants last night on Zoom. I'd like there to be more such informational workshops and seminars so that our communities are informed and safe if there are immigration raids or other such threats. I'm going to try to coordinate with the school districts too. Yes, excellent. And also from Peggy, let's try to recruit more social media support for SunnyvaleDems. Yeah. Blue Sky account, question mark. Somebody that knows what blue sky means.
That's the new Twitter alternative.
Okay, oh yes, I didn't know that, sorry. Yeah, and I guess we'll need a TikTok alternative too, right? Okay. Others with ideas for speakers, topics, resistance.
I think our next speaker is present.
Oh. I didn't see them on. Jason Park, are you online?
He had a note in the chat.
Oh. Okay, I see. Naomi says, Ruth Silvertaub, who I think is a member and Sunnyvale resident, offered to do a workshop on immigration, deportation, etc. Excellent. Oh. All right, and Peggy says, perhaps we can have more action activities like the postcarding Ambrosia organized during election season. Love it. And there's going to be a lot of action to do, so. Love that. All right, I see Jason Park entering the waiting room, so I'm going to admit him. Welcome, Jason. We are just wrapping up our last topic, which was brainstorming ideas for speakers and events in 2025. So I'm going to transition now to our next speaker. So Mr. Park, thank you for being here today to speak to the club.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor to speak to you all today. Can you all hear me, first of all?
Yes, you're a little bit garbled. It's not that clear, but.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, that's good. All right, so first I'm just going to give the really quick introduction, and then I hope that you will also introduce yourself in a better way. But in May, Jason Park became the first Gen Z person in our state's history to be elected directly onto the Democratic National Committee, or DNC, by the California Democratic Party as a 4-year term member. And Jason's going to update us on the path forward for the DNC, including the upcoming selection of a party chair and vice chair. So, go ahead, Jason.
Well, let's see, Crystal, can we quit sharing the whiteboard?
Yes.
Well,
Awesome. Great. And Jason, I'm going to spotlight you as well. There you go.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Mike. And thank you to Martin Pine, who was instrumental in setting up this meeting. My name is Jason Park. I'm a member of the Democratic National Committee. And I'm honored to speak to you all today. First, introduce myself to you, but also to hear some of your opinions and feedback regarding the upcoming DNC chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, and finance chair election. The election will happen in Maryland. DNC members all across the country, totaling about north of 400 people, will gather in Maryland, just outside of DC, to elect the next DNC chair, vice chairs, and all the other officers of the nation. I believe that this next step is critical in terms of how our party recovers from this past November's election. Who we entrust with the leadership of our national party, I believe, is going to be critical in terms of our success in 2026 and in 2020. And so with that in mind, I want to make sure that my decision is driven by Democratic clubs, including the Sunnyvale Democrats, and so that's why I'm here before you all today. Before I turn it over to any questions and answers from you all, I want to share with you all that the DNC has been live streaming candidate forums on its YouTube page, which I'm about to drop in the chat. This is the link to the DNC YouTube page. Whenever they have DNC chair and officer election related forums, they have those live streamed on the YouTube page. And our next forum is actually going to be focused on the Western region, including California, on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, followed by a final forum focused on the Eastern region on Thursday, January 30th, in person in Washington, D.C., but also will be live streamed. And so I hope you all take the time to listen to those live streams. Very interesting conversations and debates happening between all the candidates. And I also want to highlight that as a DNC member, I haven't been waiting, for people to approach me with feedback and opinions. I've been seeking Democratic clubs out across the country, the county, and across the state to make sure that, again, that my decision on who I support is driven by grassroots Democrats too, because let's face it, the DNC has to do a better job on showing, our grassroots supporters that the organization actually cares about them. So that's part of why I am here today, and that's why I am really honored to have this conversation. And so with that, the last thing I want to share with you all before I turn it over to you all for questions is I want to highlight the number of positions that are open as well as the number of candidates. We currently have 8 candidates in the war and counting, to be honest. For DNC chair, we have 4 candidates and counting for something called DNC vice chair, specific engagement voter participation. There will also be 3 at-large vice chairs elected, as well as 1 secretary, 1 treasurer, and 1 finance chair. And so, total number of officers running, and obviously there are 4 candidates running in the race, then actual seats open. And so, again, that's why I want to hear from you about what you think about this race that's undergoing. So, with that, I want to turn it over to our club leadership, whoever's moderating the call, to help me run the Q&A portion. I want to hear from you all and really answer questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. The sound is still a little bit garbled and hard to hear. I don't know if you have anything you can adjust or not, but.
Jason, is it possible you have noise cancellation enabled on those?
Can you all hear me better now?
Yes.
Perfect. Let me know if I need to restate anything. I guess my AirPods are not cooperating with me right now, which is fine. I can adapt on the go. So if there's anything that you all didn't hear from my speech just now, or anything that I can clarify, please don't hesitate to let me know at this time.
Yeah, Jason, I would love to kind of hear more about your story and your background and how you became the youngest or the first Gen Z elected to the DNC.
That's a great question, and I'm grateful to you for asking that question. I think to answer that question, I will say that I actually started right here in Santa Clara County at our central committee, our county party, as an intern for the party in high school, and since then I got really active into college Democrats and Young Democrats. I served on President Biden's National Student Leadership Council during the general election of the 2020 campaign, and then was honored to serve as state president of California College Democrats. We brought chapter supports to the state, like the Central Valley, that have historically been underrepresented in terms of college Dems. And with that, I was inspired to run for DNC member because I saw how the majority of the makeup of the DNC tends to skew older and tends to skew more white than BIPOC. And so those were one of many reasons that I decided to run for DNC. And also the fact that, let's face it, the DNC isn't exactly the most transparent organization. And so I made a pledge as a candidate for DNC member that I would be proactive and accessible as a DNC member. And I'm delivering on that campaign promise by, going to clubs such as the Sunnyvale Democratic Club to speak to members, directly engage with our grassroots supporters, and hear, questions, comments, concerns, even the ones that, are tough and sometimes some folks in our party don't want to talk about.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, please raise your digital hand using the react, the little heart button at the bottom, for questions for Mr. Park. See, Margaret Lawson has her hand up. Please go ahead.
Just moments ago, we were talking about how to get young people involved in the Sunnyvale Democratic Club. And what are your comments or what are your suggestions?
That's a great question. And I want to say thank you to all for prioritizing this and agendizing it. I think some suggestions that I have for you all is, number one, I really think our party needs to do a better job in terms of really, speaking and addressing to young people's concerns. I know the Biden-Harris administration made some headway in terms of like canceling student debt, but at the same time, like there are other issues that I think our party needs to do better on acting on. Like for the past several decades, people were talking about how, Roe v. Wade is fine. It's on the books of law. It's not going to go away. It's not under threat. And then, lo and behold, when the right took power and to control, they wasted no time in terms of axing that from our books. And so, again, I think really speaking to issues that young people care about and actually asking young people what they care about, I think is important. But also, I hear some other clubs across the county talking about going to high schools and college campuses and tabling there and sharing about what your club is doing and how young people can actually get involved in terms of events, programs, initiatives, et cetera, that you all are open to doing, in partnership with young people. I think that will really help in terms of actual concrete numbers.
Okay, Mike Cerrone, please go ahead.
Yeah, Jason, could you clarify, maybe I couldn't hear it clearly, when is the election of the officers?
Yes, the actual election of the officers will take place in Maryland at the winter 2025 DNC meeting on February 1st. This is the election that all DNC members across the country, which is currently a little north of 400 members across the country nationwide, will vote on all of these positions, including myself and Supervisor Otto Lee.
What's the cutoff for candidates to join the race? I was surprised yesterday. I've seen some forums, but I was surprised yesterday to see a new candidate who just announced on some show.
Yes. To my understanding, I believe candidates can enter the race as late as whenever the start of the DNC meeting is, to be honest, which is last week of this month. But that being said, DNC candidates have to gather 40 DNC member signatures to be able to qualify for those forums that I just talked about and to actually be on the ballot. And so there is already a barrier that candidates have to overcome. I believe the candidate you're probably referring to, Mike, is Faiz Shakir, who is Bernie Sanders' former campaign manager.
That's right.
Obviously, he's put in the work and he has that profile to get that many signatures. But I'm under the understanding that other people who may potentially run, that may be a harder thing for them to overcome in terms of a hurdle, given the number of DNC member signatures you need to get.
And what are the characteristics, since you'll be voting, what are the characteristics you're looking for in a candidate?
Absolutely. What you all share and what other grassroots Democrats tell me across Santa Clara County and the state is definitely a huge guideline for me in terms of who I'll be voting for. But also folks who have concrete solutions to problems, like how did our party miss the mark of messaging this past election? Candidates who actually offer tangible, concrete solutions these kinds of problems are the folks I'm going to be more inclined to support. And I'm a little surprised that I have to say this, but certain DNC officer candidates haven't actually put the time to reach out to their voters, to reach out to the DNC members and ask, what are your priorities and concerns? And so certainly folks, who don't take the time to reach out to me won't be getting my support because Democrats in California elected me to be a DNC member. And so obviously I know what you all care about and what your priorities are. So that is, should be obvious, but there are candidates out there who aren't putting the time and putting the effort to reach out and have just a simple conversation. So I won't be supporting those candidates as well.
Okay, next question from Justine Wang.
Hi, thank you, first of all, for getting involved, right? Because I think as someone who's also like a younger person, 31, I definitely noticed that I'm also the youngest person in my volunteer groups. Anything that has anything to do with civic duty. So I wanted to know, what separates you from another Gen Z or younger person from, actually taking the step to get involved, right? You need to organize, don't agonize. So, question one is, what motivated you to, stop tweeting or complaining on social media and like actually do something and, learn how the city works or the county works or how the party works. And my second question is, now that you've, I guess, entered the machine of a political party in the United States, has your perspective changed? And if so, how?
Great questions. I'm going to give an answer that answers both questions at the same time. Frankly, my view of how exactly to make change hasn't changed in the sense that I believe that building power starts with, yes, getting a seat at the table, but also being able to build coalitions and partnerships with folks who've already been in the organization. Like I'm saying in my capacity as a DNC member, that I care about transparency at the DNC and a bunch of other issues that folks who have been around in the DNC longer than I have also care about. And so being able to find those common areas where I can work together with them and collaborate on them on an issue by issue basis has been one way in which I feel is yields a greater amount of success in terms of actually making change at the DNC, right? I've actually gotten DNC officer candidates to commit to more investment in our youth organizations. I've actually gotten DNC officer candidates to commit to more transparency on where the hell are we spending our money at the DNC, our DNC budget. And so I found that, to answer your question, both to get into the door as well as what to do once I'm in the door, it's finding who those potential partners and allies are, build quick relationships with them, and start working them on an issue by issue basis in terms of what are some common priorities in which I care about, this other person cares about, and there's some overlap.
Okay, thank you. Next is Carrie Levin.
Hi, thank you so much for stepping up to the plate and rising to the occasion in terms of your civic duty. We just had a talk on ranked choice voting right before you, and my son has been very active in the state of Nevada, question one ranked choice voting, and I got to learn a lot more about this particular voting while he was working for it up to the election, which unfortunately did not pass in Nevada and quite a few other states. And what I did learn, and disappointingly, is how strong that the Democratic Party in general opposes it. And I understand that aspect, but I'm wondering, what are you feeling from the ground up, if any open opportunities where ranked choice voting could possibly work its way into the Democratic Party?
That's a great question. I think to answer your question, what I would say that it are two things. One, I'm a supporter of ranked choice voting, but also number two, I want to share that I believe there is more opportunities for us to implement RCV, especially, in Democratic strongholds, and, get more supporters in our party on this issue by showing, the data, by showing, where are the elections that Democrats won in, and even potentially, seats, municipalities, counties, et cetera, across the country where Democrats won those elections and they were able to win, partly in due to, RCV being in place in those areas. And so I think being able to show the evidence, show the data, and utilize that, harness that, and leverage that data to make the case for RCV is, in my opinion, the best way in which we can get more Democrats in support of ranked choice voting. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, pretty much it does. Thank you. The other concern I have is it's still a strong opposition that I'm sensing in the Democratic Party overall. For example, it's gotten so political. For example, in Nevada, Planned Parenthood could not endorse ranked choice voting because Democrats opposed it, and so they were forced to step out of that endorsement. So it's now that we have Trump in the picture, had we had ranked choice voting nationwide, he would no way would have made it, in my opinion, be president. If it was a nationwide, I could be wrong. However, I think it's something to be seriously looked at moving forward, given the extreme position, the extreme candidates we now have, and it's growing. So thank you.
Well, thank you for educating me on this issue in Nevada. I had no idea until we had this conversation, and I look forward to, getting more learning opportunities and learn from you all by continuing to show up to club meetings and events. Thank you.
All right. Other questions from the audience, or Jason? I know you put in that there were some webinars coming up. Do you happen to have any links to those, or ways to easily join?
Yes, absolutely. If you just click on this link, youtube.com/@thedemocrats, you will go to the YouTube page, and whenever a live stream is going on, you will see it at the very front of that YouTube page that there's a live stream going on, and you click on that, live stream to tune into that forum. The other thing that I can say is that as a DNC member, I'm actually able to submit questions to these forums that the candidates are forced to answer. And so if you have any, suggestions for me in terms of questions that these candidates should be asking, easy questions, tough questions, and everything in between, please don't hesitate to reach out, because then I have more input in terms of, what should I actually be asking our next potential leadership of our party at the national level.
Yeah, awesome. Sorry, I had missed that link in the chat earlier. Thank you for reposting it.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay. Any last questions before? let Jason go.
Well, I guess we can provide some, I guess like all of us, I have suggestions for what, we ought to be looking for going forward, and I'm sure other people do too. And one thing I think a lot of us feel like I'm curious for your perspective because you're a lot younger than I am, but it seems to me our whole messaging and dialogue are extremely outdated. We have Scranton Joe has been our kid. Now I know what that means and refers to because I'm that old, but I think for a lot of people that early industrial sort of framework is not communicating, and a lot of people don't relate to that. Also, after the last election, we keep talking about the working class. We have to get the working class. We lost the working class, but that is also terminology. Working class tends to be people, unskilled labor doing manual jobs, and the low end of the income. We don't talk about the homeless class, for example, because that would be rude. And I think a lot of people who are working jobs like that, which I did early in my career, do not see themselves, as in a class that is sort of a lifelong condition. And so I think maybe we can look at other ways to communicate, and I think that will naturally come out of younger candidates. They're just and the forums I've heard, it is a different kind of conversation, but I think we definitely need to look at things in a new way. And of course, Trump's ideology or lack of ideology is sort of like an off-Broadway show, right? He just goes to rallies and he sees whatever people seem to like and throws it together into a mix. And maybe that's the kind of thing we ought to do, just see what works with people and definitely try and make it a more coherent ideology, but still. Anyway, that's just my comment, and maybe other people have suggestions on what we should be looking for.
Great point, Mike. I actually want to respond to both your point as well as Justine's point in the chat. I think something that one of the DNC chair candidates, Ken Martin of Minnesota, said very brilliantly, although I'm still making up my decision on who to support. He said very brilliantly that working class doesn't just include, white Americans, but also includes BIPOC families across the country. It also includes both families that are union families as well as families that should be union families but are not currently part of a union. And so we have to be making sure that our party is doing better at not only talking to everyone that was just mentioned, but also, asking, working families, workers, our leaders in labor themselves, hey, what do you think about X, Y, and Z on messaging? And consulting them and actively, utilizing them rather than consultants in DC or celebrities to get our party's message out, I think is a better way to make sure that we bring back some of these working class voters. And I think Ken did a very good job in talking about that. So all the more reason again to tune into these candidate forums that I just mentioned that are sponsored by the DNC for all the DNC officer candidates. And if you have any questions about particular questions that you want these candidates on stage to actually answer, please don't hesitate to forward them to me so that I can submit them to the DNC Secretary's office. Great question, Mike, and thank you to both you and everyone who have raised their hands during this time.
And Jason, I thought of one other question, which is also before you joined, we were talking about ways that our club can, lift up voices of younger Democrats, as well as what local ideas for what local clubs can do. I mean, actual action for resisting the Trump agenda. What is your advice to small local clubs?
That is a really good question. I actually think rather than me, giving advice to you all, I think, the communication flow should really be the other way around, where our national leadership, including, DNC members such as ourselves, we should be going to you all and asking for your input about what are you hearing on the ground and how can we, elevate the feedback that you're getting to upper levels of our party so that they are better informed on how to actually speak on issues and talk to voters in a way that they feel listened to and heard and ultimately, we want them to vote for us and our candidates, obviously. And so I actually, am a strong believer of really the inverse. And that's why, my commitment to you all as I hop off this call is I want to continue to engage with you all, continue to come to your events and your meetings, continue to meet with, your leaders, including Crystal and Mike and Martin and so many others who are on this call. Peggy Brewster, Justine, and so many others. So thank you so much for your time this evening. I promise you that this won't be the last time we'll have a conversation. I want to continue to chat with you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. Really appreciate it. All right. Okay, next, or our last thing is just announcements of things coming up and places to go, webinars to attend, books to read. Any announcements that people would like to share, please raise your hand. All right, Peggy, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I want to let everyone know that we have a trustee appointment coming up. Well, it's open right now for trustee area 5 for Sunnyvale School District. This is the seat that Eileen vacated upon joining City Council. So you need to live in trustee area 5 in Sunnyvale School District, which is the northernmost part of Sunnyvale. And applications are due February 10th. There are information meetings on January 23rd and January 28th. And there is more information. I will drop the link in the chat and hopefully we get some applicants. We have multiple applicants, and please tell anybody that you think might be interested or know somebody that might know somebody that's interested. Looking forward to the appointment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Peggy. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah. Registration to vote for State Central Committee is now open, and you should all. There was a link that was sent out in the e-blast today, and you should all register. And you should all click that link and register because it lets you vote for your assembly representatives. So for most of you, that's going to be 8026. If you don't live in Sunnyvale, you might be in somewhere other than 8026. But it lets you vote for your state for up to your 14 state central committee representatives, and one of the candidates is me, so I think you should vote for me. But I also have and there's some other names you're going to recognize on that list, and feel free to contact me if you want some other suggestions on who you should be voting for. Or feel free to completely disregard my suggestions. It's your ballot, and you should vote for who you think would be the best representative.
Thank you, Martin. I'll also note there are several other, at least 2 other club members who are on that ballot. And if any of those, like Gail, would like to say anything regarding their candidacy, please.
For the record, you should also vote for them.
Thank you. Gail, if you wanted to say anything, you are welcome to.
Hi, I have problems with things. Okay, so this is Gail. Hi, I'm running for ADEM, 26th District. I'd appreciate your vote. You need to register. I think, Martin, are you going to put that in chat or something so people can register? It only takes like 5 minutes. I'd appreciate your support. I think we're going to probably send out a slate of people that are with me. I think there's a bunch of us. So thank you. Sorry, I'm sort of incoherent today.
All right. Anybody else who's on that ballot that I maybe didn't see
I'm on that ballot, and just want to say that whatever Gail and Martin said, I, just ask for your vote and hope to be your representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. All right, I know Carol Weiss is also on the ballot. She's been a member. And Martin, is your hand still raised or raised again?
Yeah, I just posted the link in chat.
Great.
There's another link if you want to actually vote in person, but I really don't know why you would vote in person over having it emailed to you.
Yes. So everyone on this call should click that link and register to vote today. All right, and let's see, other announcements. I do have one announcement about Sunnyvale's first Sustainability Speaker Series event of 2025 is coming up on January 29th. It's a webinar only, not in person. And the title is Restoring Wetlands for Climate Resilience. And I will put the link in the chat. It is, again, Wednesday, January 29th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. All right, Martin, your hand is still raised. Is it something else?
No, it's Zoom being annoying.
Okay. All right, so I put the Sustainability Speaker Series link in. It's of course free. It's a webinar, January 29th. Another announcement is the Council Study Issue and Budget Proposal Workshop that is held every year. This year will be held on February 13th. It's a full day of discussion about the study issues and budget proposals that are in play, of which there are 40 currently on the website, possibly more to show up. And so again, it's a full day workshop. It's public. The only time to public comment is at 8:30 in the morning. So if you want to advocate for particular study issues or budget proposals, 8:30 a.m. on February 13th is the time to be there. Other announcements, Mike, do you want to say anything about the book club?
The book club, we continue to read interesting books and meet approximately every month. We're actually meeting tomorrow and talking about, I think it's a Davos Man, which is, Sue picked this months ago, but as it turns out, it would be hard to imagine a more relevant book. It's about the billionaires and the oligarchs that are how they have essentially rigged the economic and political system in their favor, and that couldn't be more relevant than it is this week. So, and we have different books every month, which I try and put on the website. So anybody's invited to. We pick books that are generally politically of interest to the Dem Club. So feel free to contact us and join that discussion.
If you want to come tomorrow, please email. You can email me or Mike, and we'll give you the details. But if you want to come and just listen to us, that would be okay, I think, if that's okay with Mike.
Sure.
So
sure.
You can email me or Mike, and we'll make sure you're there. But it's not very taxing on your brain. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mike and Gail. Ambrosia.
I just wanted to say I started reading Davos Man and I'm going to tomorrow and it's just blowing my mind. But what I really wanted to say is I've sent a few private messages about membership. I'm the membership director And a lot of us, our membership expired in December. And I will just slowly, gently be reaching out. We have that 3-month grace period, so there's no rush. And if you have any questions about your membership, feel free to, pop me an email if you are concerned about when your dues are due. So thank you.
Thank you, Ambrosia. I wanted to say that kind of a follow-on to what Peggy was saying about the SSD Board of Trustees. Separately, the Foothill De Anza Board of Trustees made an appointment for Patrick Aaron's seat. They did that on Monday. I'm putting information in the chat. They interviewed 5 candidates and selected Alexander, I'm not sure how to pronounce, Gvatua, to serve the remainder of Patrick's term through 2026. And there's an article linked that I'm putting in the chat for those interested. All right, Ambrosia, your hand's still raised, or you want? Okay. All right, other announcements. I have 2 more. One is that our next meeting, we have invited Josh Becker to speak, and he has accepted. So our February 15th meeting will feature Josh Becker. Excited to hear from him. And my last announcement is that the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors is meeting on the 28th of this month, and they will be considering a county-wide ban on artificial turf. So great opportunity to advocate, either to send messages to the supervisors in advance or public comment during that meeting. All right, any other announcements before we close out? This was a—
Crystal, what does that mean, that it's a county ban on county land?
Yes, on yes. All right, so I want to thank everyone for joining. It's been a great meeting. We've got some great ideas, and during our brainstorming session, we have our new connection with Jason Park, and we have his cell phone number so we can continue that conversation, and really appreciate Dave enlightening us all on ranked choice voting. So thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next time.